Question number 2. Question 2 here is a difference. So difference will be doing in two forms. One, classical method, and the other is categorizing in columns. Okay, so let's start with difference number 1. Difference 1 is what? Dominance and recessive. So what does dominant mean and what does recessive mean? Dominance is something that is always there. To dominate. So it is always present. Okay, and recessive is something that is silent, latent, or is hidden down in presence of dominance. Okay, so the difference here goes like it is able to express itself even in the presence of the recessive allele. Okay, so if recessive allele is there, dominance is going to express itself. For example, in the experiment by Mendel, tall plant was dominant. Okay, so a large number of pea plants were tall, but some of them were dwarf. So tall is over here is dominant and dwarf over here is recessive. So in presence of tall plant, tall gene, recessive gene, that is dwarf, will not show itself. Okay, so that is what is written. Recessive allele or the factor is unable to express its effect in presence of a dominant allele. Okay, so if tall will be present in TT, then dwarf will remain silent. Okay, now it does not require another similar allele to produce its effect on the phenotype. Phenotype is physical characters. It produces phenotypic character or effect only in the presence of similar allele. So, for a dwarf plant to express itself, you need both the gene to be dwarf. Okay, students, clear? Now, dominant allele or a factor can form complete polypeptide or enzyme for expressing its effect. For example, violet color in the pea flower. Okay, so flower of a pea plant is either violet in color, either white in color. So for violet color to express itself, there are specific polypeptides or enzymes which needs to be formed. So dominant will form such polypeptides. Whereas in the case of recessive, the recessive allele forms an incomplete or defective polypeptide or enzyme, so that the expression consists of absence of the effect of dominant allele. For example, white flower. So recessive allele will not form the complete polypeptide, and in that case flowers will not be violet but they'll be white in nature. Okay students, so this is your classical way of writing a difference. Now let's look at the categorized manner. So we'll make 3 columns. One is category, the other one is dominant, and the last one is recessive. Now first, are the genes expressive? So for dominant it is yes, and for recessive it is no, they are not expressed. Now, requirement of a similar allele. For dominant you do not require a similar allele, whereas for recessive you will require a similar allele. Formation of polypeptide, yes for dominance and no for recessive. Okay, so for example, here P is dominant and these plants would be tall, whereas all these plants would be dwarf. Okay students, so here we are done with dominance and recessive. Now we are going to go ahead with difference number 2. Difference number 2 is what? Homozygous and heterozygous. Homo means something that is similar, okay, and hetero means something that is different. So here homozygous means it is a pure form of trait. or true breeds, which gives rise to similar homozygous individuals. Here, both the gametes are of the same type, but in heterozygous individuals is seldom pure and produces offspring with different genotypes. Okay, on self-crossing. So when all the tall plants and hybridized tall plants have a self-cross, all the individuals over here will have tall heterozygous genotype. Okay, now both the allele or the characters are similar. So both of them are either tall, both of them are either dwarf. Heterozygous, it carries a dissimilar allele. Okay, now this and this are different. This is for tall plant and this is for dwarf plant. So genotypically, these are different, but phenotypically they are all tall. Now, homozygous individuals carry either dominant gene or recessive allele, but not both of them at the same time. Whereas a heterozygous individual would be either has both the genes, either dominant as well as recessive. Okay, so going ahead, homozygous will produce only one type of gametes. So the gametes here will be either only tall, either only dwarf. Whereas heterozygous will produce two types of gametes. One that is tall and the other one that is dwarf. Okay students, now it does not show extra rigor, whereas heterozygous genes will have individuals. The individuals can show extra rigor and they are thus called hybrid rigor or they are heterosis. Okay students, so this is the way of writing the classical difference. Now, categorizing it, we'll make three columns. One is categories, the other one is homozygous and the last one is heterozygous. Now, genotype of an offspring will be similar, whereas it would be different for heterozygous. Both the alleles are similar, they are different. Show either dominant or recessive, either one of them, either dominant or recessive, whereas heterozygous will carry both the genes. Now, gametes produced, they'll only be of one type, that is either tall, either dwarf, whereas it would be of two types, tall and dwarf at the same time. And lastly, hybrids are absent and hybrids are present. Okay students, hybrids are what? Absent and they are present in the case of heterozygous. So this is your difference in the second type. Now we're going with our last difference, that is of monohybrid and dihybrid. Now mono means one and di means two. So it is the hybrid produced by the cross between parents showing contrast in a single character. Okay, so there is only one trait or one character which is crossed for. Okay, either tall, either color, either shape of the pod, but anything that is only one. But when two of the characters are taken in place, okay, so two of them will be known as dihybrid. Okay, now it is the hybrid produced by cross between the parents showing contrast of two characters. For example, height of a plant and the color of the pot. Color of the seed. So there are two things. Second, it is heterozygous for a single trait, whereas for dihybrid, it is heterozygous for two traits. You just have to remember mono means one, di means two. categorizing this, we'll have categories monohybrid and dihybrid. Now, characters, they are single, and for dihybrid there is two. Heterozygous, it is a single trait, whereas for this it has two traits to keep in mind. So students, we have completed all the three differences in two formats. Okay students? Okay.